remember that chick fight with that really hot chick, the UFC we watched? I found her the next day. I was tweeting like love tweets at her. Hey, we are recording, right?
Yeah.
You always hit record. I don't want Chad Shank to hear this. Fuck it. Doesn't matter. I'll tell you afterwards. Chad, if you actually hear this, it's a good thing. But it's supposed to be a surprise, and I think she fucked me over.
She didn't get back to you, or she?
Yeah, I'll tell you later.
All right.
Anyway, hey, this is Doug Stanhope. I'm on the. Is it just the
Modern Day Philosophers podcast?
Modern Day Philosophers. Well, yours is themed, and ours is whatever we can think of to talk about. Yeah. But it's gonna go like that anyway because we're a few cocktails in.
Right.
I can't speak to people without it. And today was a day that normally the first thing you think of is maybe I should check into a rehab. Oh shit, Danny Lobell's coming.
I ruined it. It's my fault.
I told Bingo, I go, fuck, I got to do like 5 days of just drinking a lot of water.
Do you go through those
after
cleanses?
Weekends like this? Because we hosted a band. They had the Americana Music Festival this weekend, and I told the guy running it that I'd host a band, and they were cool. If you're Phoenix people or anywhere, just find a Trailer Queen was the band, and they said they don't like the term rockabilly, but it's that kind of. It's very accessible and it's fun music, and she's a hot chick, which always helps. So we had just the last 3 days of just solid hanging with the band.
Yeah.
And I'd forgotten all about saying yes to you because that was before the 3-day hangover. You go, I'm 3 hours out. I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm going to have to drink again.
I'm glad I got in that window before you realized, it's good to be here, man. This is my first time in Bisbee. I love Arizona. I don't know. When did you first find this city?
I found this 2002, I think. It was right after I had gotten fake married to Renee, and we played Scottsdale, and we had 3 days off, killing time between Scottsdale and El Paso. So we're just taking back roads, and I think my friend from college moved to Bisbee. Let's go there. And when you drive through the tunnel, you're like, what the fuck is this?
It's amazing. It's like Narnia or something. You just get through here, and it's this magical land.
You have to see Old Bisbee before you leave. I know and I'm glad you came, because initially I said Sunday.
Yeah.
And you said, well, I have a show Sunday night, so I'll have to drive right back. And that's an 8-hour round trip and then do a show. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, fuck it. Make it Monday.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I got to see it. It was unbelievable. As soon as we got in here, I was like, I get it now. I get why Doug is here. This is beautiful. And it's not that far away from everything, but it feels like you're a million miles away from everything.
And you are. But I remember when I moved, we had to move somewhere. My lease was up in Playa del Rey in L.A.
You were in Playa del Rey? It doesn't seem like
Playa del Rey. That was for a year. But if I ever had to move back to L.A., that's the only place I'd live because it's so segregated from the rest of L.A. And it's 8 minutes